Hi, welcome to Spirituality Connecting the Dots. My name is Earl, and this is the very first video in this channel. It's meant to introduce myself, tell you a little bit about me, and what the channel is all about. I am a published author, as you probably noticed in the intro. My book is about my journey from a very toxic religious environment that I was born into to finding my own spiritual path. And the book is very relevant to this channel because I got a lot of insights when I wrote it that burning a hole in my pocket and have to get off my chest, if you'll pardon the mixed metaphors. So the book is kind of right now serving as a textbook for this channel because like I say, I channeled a lot of really, what I consider really important spiritual insights when I wrote the book, and I want to share them in this venue. I'm also an artist. I have painted a lot over the course of my life. It's always been a hobby, but I've sold quite a few paintings, and I've given quite a few as gifts to people that I know. And because this is a spiritual channel, the one that I'll show you today is one of the Dalai Lama. This was painted from a picture when he was a much younger man, and it was painted when I was a much younger man myself. I consider myself an intuitive psychic. I am not clairvoyant like some psychics are. I don't see things, even though I'm a visually oriented person in the three-dimensional real world. You have to be to paint like I do. I'm not a visual person in the spirit world. I get my intuition knowingly. I get it without seeing it or without hearing it usually, but I just know it. I've been more and more in contact in these later years with my spirit guides and angels, and I have done a lot of psychic work in the past over the years. My wife and I have done a lot of tarot readings. We don't currently do them except for ourselves, but we've done tarot readings in metaphysical fairs and other public venues, and almost always we've done them together. I am a healer. I'm a Reiki master. My wife is also. And in years past, we have done hands-on healing with people on a table in front of us. But we use Reiki these days mostly to send energy, healing energy, to people in places that we feel need it. But I consider myself a healer. I'm a retired wedding minister, and so is my wife. We owned and operated the White Rose Wedding Chapel in Colorado Springs for a number of years. We officiated as wedding ministers at more than 2,500 weddings over the years, at least 1,000 of them in that chapel. The business has been closed now since the beginning of the pandemic, and we just sold the building several weeks ago. In my day job, I'm an IT professional, information technology. I've been all my adult life, and that, I guess, informs the way I look at things, even on the spiritual level, because of my experience in analysis and in organizing ideas. That's been a big factor, I believe, in the way that I've created my new belief systems. I guess the credentials that I have for doing what I'm doing here are, on one level, just life experience. I've been around the block a few times, I assure you. And even more importantly, I know that I am a light worker. I know that my spiritual purpose for being here at this point in my life is to spread light everywhere I can and be an example of love in every way I can. And Of course, we're talking about intentions here. I'm only human and I don't live up to those ideals all the time like most of us don't, but that is my intention. And as a light worker, I feel I am doing exactly what I'm here to be doing in launching and doing this channel. I've mentioned my wife several times. She and I have worked together a lot, and we've both been in previous marriages. This marriage between us has been nothing but a spiritual partnership. We all of our kids are from previous marriages, and the purpose of this marriage has been to just be spiritual partners and support each other in healing and growth in every way we possibly can. So I put a picture up here in the corner of my wife Linda to honor her, because she's my support system in everything I do. The mission statement for this channel is to stimulate thought and respectful conversation about existential questions and universal truths, to encourage the updating of personal belief systems, to inspire the expansion of our collective consciousness, and to seek to exemplify love and light. I've already mentioned the spiritual community that's sprung up around the YouTube channels. My wife and I started watching YouTube psychics about 5 years ago, particularly during the Trump era, when the news was disturbing to us in a lot of ways, and we decided we did a lot better by listening to people that were cheerfully predicting an eventual positive outcome about what was happening in the world. And a lot of those YouTube psychics have acknowledged specifically that there has been a spiritual community that's sprung up around them that watches them and subscribes to them. Those people were already out there, of course, but the effect of these YouTube channels and the YouTube community is that it's become conscious of itself. We now realize how many other people out there that are like-minded in a lot of ways. And so I again want to acknowledge that spiritual community that's out there subscribing to and watching YouTube videos. What is spirituality? There are many definitions out there. The one that I am going to put forth now as a working definition for spirituality in this channel is: spirituality is the awareness that there's an eternal part of ourselves, the soul, besides just our body, that there's way more to the universe than we can physically perceive, and we're integrally connected to all of it. I mentioned earlier that I would talk about my story because it's what my book is about, and it has so much to do with why I started this channel. I was born into a very strict fundamentalist Christian religion in my family, and it was honestly quite unique to my family. If we attended a Baptist church, an independent Baptist church, but honestly, if my family had gone to church once on Sunday and lived life like other people do throughout the week, you know, dance, go to movies, play cards, and all that stuff that we didn't do, I probably wouldn't have been terribly affected by the church. But I was very much affected because my mother had essentially turned our family into a cult of 4 people. Because what she believed about the Bible being literally true and what it said being interpreted in ways that she interpreted it, that was drilled into me literally from birth. The very first memory I can remember in my life was my mother saying to me, "We don't do that," when I did something that she thought was outside the norm of what a born-again Christian should do. And the effect on me was very much a social effect. The beliefs that were pounded into my head, eventually when I went to school, I realized some of them didn't make sense, and I started moving away from them one at a time. And the practices that, we don't smoke, drink, dance, play cards, go to movies, all that stuff that we had rules about in our house. Once I got away from home, those eventually started being easy to rethink and undo. But the effect on me socially was dramatic and extremely toxic. I was so indoctrinated into the fact that most people are worldly, and we is a we versus them kind of a mentality. We as born again Christians are going to go to heaven, and everybody else, which is almost everybody else, doesn't get it, and they're going to spend eternity in hell, and and therefore we don't associate with worldly people. Well, the effect this had on me as a very sensitive child was when I started in grade school, I just didn't feel right about associating with other kids. They were worldly. Even in grade school, the boys would bring pictures of naked women to school or whatever they picked up that they thought they wanted to share with other people, and I would just turn and walk away every time. I didn't associate it with them. In high school, I realized that I didn't really have any friends. I played with and associated with and hung out with guys that went to the same church, period. All the guys in high school that I would have liked to be friends with, they were worldly and I didn't associate with them. And so I realized recently that I never really had a friend, in the sense that a real friend, an intimate friendship with a real friend is. That handicapped me a lot. And as an adult, of course, I've spent decades rethinking, re-examining, healing, and all that. And over the decades, I've managed to become the person I am today. And the book is about that transition very much. And so the one thing that I also want to mention is that I went forward in church, which is a religious term for deciding you want to be saved, and going to the front of the church and publicly declaring that you want to be a born-again Christian. You want to accept Jesus into your heart, and that's what I did at age 8. And I did it at age 8 because my little sister at age 4 had done that. And my mother believed in the so-called rapture, where it's predicted in the Bible, as she interpreted it, and others do too, that in the end times, so to speak, Jesus will come back to earth and take up, literally up into heaven, up into the air with him, all the born-again Christians. And so my parents actually told me that if I didn't decide to be saved, in the sense that that meant in our religious environment, that Jesus could come back any day and take them and my sister up into heaven, and I would be left behind. I was threatened with abandonment. And so I decided to become a born-again Christian at age 8 totally out of fear. And that is where my book starts, and when the transition away from that is what it's all about. I got a scenario to throw out here. A Catholic, a Baptist, an atheist, and a YouTube psychic walk into a bar. Okay, it's not really a joke. and I guess it's a cheap shot to make it sound like a joke, but it's my way of putting out there 4 very different belief systems all in the same room at the same time. And I bring that up because belief systems are a very big part of the subject of that will be discussed over and over on this channel. As I said, it's because a lot of us haven't updated our belief systems completely from childhood indoctrination. We have intellectually, but we haven't emotionally. We don't react in ways that show that we don't believe what we were taught to believe when we were kids. So I use that device to bring up the topic of very diverse belief systems. And belief systems are important because they define how we think and how we respond to the world. And even though this is not a political channel, you can look at the political situation in the United States right now and realize that belief systems have divided this country tremendously. There are people that seem to believe things that some of us can't possibly believe that they could believe. How can they believe that? And they, I think the same thing about us. So belief systems are patterns of thought that are established by virtue of their having been thought over and over and over. I've heard it said by one channeled psychic, channeled entity. The beliefs are just thoughts that you think over and over and over again. So we are in future videos on this channel going to look at belief systems in some depth at some point. It's important that we respect everybody's path and everybody's belief system. I know that a lot of YouTube psychics get comments from people that are kind of on the attack because they don't believe the same thing the person in the video says they believe. And I want to say right here that everything that I say on this channel that I believe is just strictly used as an example. I am not trying to convince anybody to change their beliefs in any way, shape, or form. And I really honestly believe that everybody is on their right path at any given time, and their belief systems are correct at any given time. And I say that because I firmly believe that we come into this world, incarnate, if you will, with a plan for what we want our life to be about. And some of us choose a plan that is very difficult to start out with so that we can learn and grow and heal by changing it. That's exactly what my life has been about, getting away from a set of beliefs that were indoctrinated into me in early childhood. But until you have the realization that the path you're on and the beliefs that you have are not appropriate for you, then you're on the right path. Until some still small voice inside of you says, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense anymore. At that point, it behooves you to take a hard look at your path, what you believe. If it doesn't work for you, change it. When you change it, then hopefully you're again on your right path and your belief systems are the right ones at that moment in your life. So I declare that I respect the life path and the belief system of everybody watching this channel and everybody commenting on this channel. And I ask that you respectfully give me the same respect. That, I'm on my life path. It's not your place to say it's wrong for me, just as it's not my place to say yours is wrong for you. Some of you who are already on a spiritual path and have been for years or decades may think from what I've said so far, this sounds like spirituality 101, and we already know that. We've been there, done that for years. But I believe if you stick with me, you'll find that we're eventually going to get in some pretty deep subjects that all of us struggle with. And the tone of this channel will evolve. I don't know at this point, since this is the first video on it, who my viewers are going to be, what they're going to comment on. And so therefore, at this point in time, I'm more or less trying to talk to anybody and everybody who might be watching, whether you're just curious and don't call yourself spiritual, or whether you've been on the spiritual path for 50 years. At any rate, I'm trying to talk to all of you as much as I can, and then let the tone of the channel evolve as comments occur, and I respond to them over time. I'd like to, at this point, give shout-outs to 4 different YouTube psychics that have been very encouraging to me, and mention them by name. The first is Helen of Irish Granny Tarot. Helen was so supportive because she really, when she found out about my book, liked it, read it, and did 4 videos, 4-part series about my book. And then the following video following that was an interview on camera of me about that. So she's been extremely supportive of what I'm doing and the value of what was written in that book as she perceived it, which I find very, very supportive. The second person I'd like to give a shout out to is Cash Peters, who has a YouTube channel by that name, Cash Peters. He is a psychic, although I never heard him call himself that, but he is, because he has a brilliant ability to go into the energy of a person or of a situation and watch as it were a video unfolding in front of his eyes, apparently, how that energy evolved over a short period of time, at least. And he draws pictures to illustrate that situation. He uses stick figures for people, but the context, the environments, and the evolve, the way that the thing evolves, the dynamic is what I'm trying to say, of the situation is just brilliantly illustrated in very simple drawings. And the reason I mentioned Cash Peters is because he has been very supportive in personal remarks to my comments about my starting a channel. And I should give a shout out to him. The third one I want to give a shout out to is Danny Shea of Bathrobe Tarot. Danny has acknowledged in a very important way to me the spiritual community that I've mentioned that sprung up around these YouTube channels. Every Sunday he does a video that he calls Sunday with Spirit, and he specifically invites the circle of spiritual viewers to follow him in a guided meditation. So, and he's also been very supportive in response, in replies to my comments on his channel. This wasn't intended as a countdown per se, but number 1 has to be Sheila. And I'm talking about Sheila of Celtic Tarot, Sheila. She has helped me tremendously in getting this YouTube channel launched and getting me going, both in terms of encouragement and technical support. And I wouldn't be sitting here doing this, at least not this early in the calendar. And to whatever extent this video is polished through editing, it would be a lot less so without her help. I assume that a lot of my viewers are familiar with Sheila. She's a very popular YouTube psychic. She is a great tarot reader, but I think the thing I like most about her channel is that she does a very skillful job of remote viewing. She just takes a deep breath, closes her eyes, and almost immediately starts getting images of the person or the situation that she's doing a reading on. And some of those images that she gets seem to be symbolic, and some seem to be fairly realistic in terms of what seems to be going on at the present time. And sometimes she says, I don't know what that means, but here's what I'm seeing, and it must have some significance, and symbolic significance. Sheila is also known in the YouTube community for probably doing as many or more collaborations as anybody is, and she seems to be a pioneer in that arena by inviting so many other psychics and YouTube people that she either already respects or wants to help out because they're just getting started. And she's a master at collaborating and done an incredible amount of work in bringing this YouTube community of psychics and the viewership of them together in ways that have to be positive for everybody concerned, because when two channels are put together, the viewers of one know about the other and vice versa. That's a good thing. Sheila on camera is very gracious and cheerful and kind appearing and all that good stuff. And I am here to assure you that she is exactly that in person, because Sheila happens to live just a few miles from Linda and me, and we've become good friends. She actually was there to help us. I mentioned earlier that we just recently sold the building that our wedding chapel was in, and she was there at the end to help us get everything out of there, get on schedule, and getting everything cleaned up, and helping us do a blessing of the building one final time before we locked the doors and went to the closing. So she has been a tremendous help in so many ways. Sheila and Linda and I started last year getting together once a month for eating out, and it fairly quickly turned into sushi once a month. And that group has evolved into a small group of like-minded people, including Debbie of Freebird Spirit, she's a tarot reader who also lives in Colorado Springs. So that is a joyful get-together that we have every month, and I get a chance to thank Sheila again for her help in helping me with this channel in so many ways. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.